Welcome back, everyone, to the Bank Customer Experience Podcast. My name is Bradley Cooper. I'm the host of this podcast and also the editor of ATM Marketplace. And I'm joined by these wonderful gentlemen from Cook Solutions Group, Jeshua Buchanan and Wade Fieber. Great to have you on. You want to introduce yourselves real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Jeshua Buchanan, Director of Fintech Solutions here at Cook Solutions Group.
Yeah, and Wade Fieber, Director of Strategic Verticals here at Cook Solutions Group.
Well, Wade and Jeshua, great to have you guys on. So, we're joined today to talk about a topic that we haven't covered before on the podcast, which is ATM/ITM professional services. Now, I've heard a lot of terms thrown around like managed services, but not professional services. So, can you kind of tell me a little bit how would you define that?
Yeah, our professional services here at Cook Solutions Group is really it's the team that implements all of our financial technology solutions. And it's really all about the approach that we take, Bradley. So we try and take a very honest and systematic approach to the way that we do things. We try and be ultimately as transparent as possible, whether that's about timeframes or different things like that. But yeah, we have a ton of folks on our team who have a lot of experience in this field, specifically with deploying both ATMs and ITMs and what it takes to do so, all the bells and whistles that come along with it. So yeah.
I would just add, I think, in the community that we serve, right? Community banks and credit unions, they don't always have the staff associated to handle these really large projects. And so Jesh and team are fabulous at simplifying these big projects and making them run really smoothly, really effectively, and delivering kind of a boutique experience through a major project for a small bank or credit union.
Sure. So to drill down a little bit further, how would that team really simplify the ITM deployment for banks and credit unions? Like, how do you take that machine and make it a really smooth process from the purchase to the installation?
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with the knowledge of the team. Every ITM deployment is quite a bit different, meaning every bank or credit union is using a unique core with the unique ATM host with a unique check imaging setup. And so ultimately, the wealth of knowledge that our team has ultimately and how many deployments that we have under our belt, I would like to think that we've probably seen close to pretty much every flavor, that's out there. And so I think the thing that makes it simple, like Wade was saying, is that ultimately the knowledge that we have, we're able to steer the customer in the right direction, right? Because ultimately, if you don't have that understanding, it can quickly, the waters can be muddied. So ultimately, I think our wealth of knowledge is what sets us apart in our ability to simplify that process, make sure that we bring all the correct third parties to the plate that need to be there and a part of the conversation, and ultimately help steer that customer down the correct path.
Yeah, so I really wanted to ask, so let's say I'm a bank and I'm looking at your professional services. What would kind of be your primary selling points you would give me? Like, here's what we are going to provide you.
I think, first of all, you're going to receive upfront before you ever sign an agreement with us. We're going to go through a thorough technical review of your current situation so that we know start to finish what the project looks like. We want to avoid any sort of gotchas and surprises that might come later in the project. And so we're going to start with that type of technical review. And then beyond that, you're going to receive fantastic communication throughout sometimes a very complicated project, right? So that you know where we're at as we're moving forward. Jesh and team do a great job of regular meetings, regular communication patterns. And then again, as you mentioned, bring all the right parties to the table at the right times to keep things moving through efficiently. But from a practical perspective, Brad, if this is what you're asking, our professional services team will support ITM deployments. We talked about that a little bit already. Check imaging deployments, uh, some major software upgrades, updates, things like that. Um, marketing content development and deployment. So there's a wide range of different things that they might jump in and help out with. It's really about delivering those products to the table.
Exactly. Great point. So I've also heard that you all specifically offer server hosting. Can you tell me a little bit about that and what are some of the advantages of that?
Bradley, I would say that NCR has done a really awesome job of enabling us. So they, throughout the years of being one of their partners, they've really enabled us to kind of stand out in this regard and have our own server hosting environment. So it's a multi-tenant environment that ultimately all of our customers use the same video platform, but they have their own data servers. So that's all done through an agreement and stuff with us. But ultimately, instead of the customer having to own that server and all the technicalities that come with it, Wade said this just a little bit earlier, but ultimately, a lot of these smaller banks and credit unions, community banks and credit unions, they a lot of the time don't have the infrastructure internally to host something like this, and the infrastructure that it does take to host it is pretty robust. And so what you get is you get a team of people who have not only used the technology for a long time, but ultimately we've deployed it for a long time, and we kind of know those intricacies that come along with it, and so we're able to really take that off the bank or credit union's plate.
Yeah, I would add two things. I think first, Brad, you asked earlier, how does a professional services team simplify projects? I think if a local bank or community credit union is looking at an ITM project, quite often the infrastructure requirements around servers is a big roadblock for, a 1, 2, 3 machine deployment. So moving those to hosted is a great example of how we can simplify an ITM deployment. I think that's a great way that Jesh and team deliver that experience. And then I think second to that, sometimes when we say server hosting, some people get caught up in the fact that the data lives in a data center, and that's true. But truthfully, what you're really getting out of that service is ITM server management, and that's what Jesh and team are delivering. It's so much more than where the data is sitting. It's about keeping those servers up to date. It's about keeping them on the latest and greatest versions of software. It's about troubleshooting when there's challenges. And it's about having their expertise at the customer's disposal when they need it, so they don't have to deliver that or have that same expertise in-house.
Yeah, that's a really great point. We were actually talking in our previous podcast about that with regards to video verification, really having that team that you can contact at any time so you don't have to try to deal with it yourself, late at night. So you talked a little bit, Wade, about your check imaging solution, which is called Conveyance. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, conveyance is CSG's attempt at really taking what should be a simple experience, right? Moving check images from an ATM or an ITM and getting them delivered to your item processor and trying to make that simple for the customer. We're trying to limit or reduce software that's required. So it's running the same software that we would be running as we manage the ATMs already. It's a product that's inexpensive because it is relatively simple. But at the same time, an effective check imaging platform delivers a lot of help to the bank or credit union from an efficiency perspective when we think about things like fraud and protecting the bank or credit union's customers or members. So Conveyance does a great job of delivering all of that, and it's fully cloud-based. So again, no major server infrastructure, no huge project to spin up a Conveyance experience, and it's always up to date and effectively managed because it's all in the cloud.
Really great point. Are there any specific, like you mentioned, fraud, any fraud prevention features within Conveyance that you'd like to?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually just finished phase one, we'll call it, of an integration with anti-fraud solutions, or better known as AFS. So we just finished that. Man, you want to talk about multiple flavors, right? Of a setup that a customer can have, or the layout of the way that check images go, and they've got RDC coming from here, and they've got ATM deposits coming from here and going there, and so I think the thing that our platform brings, Brad, is ultimately, again, back to individuals who have implemented and deployed this technology for a long time, man, we have a wealth of knowledge in the space of dealing with, all the different item processors that are out there, all the different types of flows of files. Heck, the different types of files that there are. Some we're just forwarding off raw data from the machine, and it's that data that's got to get where it needs to go. Then we can also create the X9 for the customer and run it through an AFS check, or we've built a pretty robust, what we call our rules engine, where the bank or the credit union themselves will have access to the conveyance platform and can create their own rules based on the data that is hitting conveyance. So whether that's a rule based around a dollar amount, whether it's a rule based around the transaction itself and the account number that's maybe hitting conveyance, it's a fairly robust platform. Lastly, I'll say, being built by CSG, we obviously take the feedback of our customers very, very seriously. And so, I'd say a good portion, 80% or greater, of the enhancements that we do in conveyance are things that our customers come to us with and say, hey, we'd love to see if conveyance could do X, Y, or Z. And we take it to our dev team, and a lot of the time they're able to make it happen for us.
Perfect. So you mentioned a little bit about branding, that you help out with branding. So how can CSG simplify branding consistency across all these networks of ATMs and ITMs?
The ATM screen itself has kind of been a wasted opportunity from a marketing perspective. You have so many captive eyeballs at the ATM while they're waiting for a transaction that if you're not effectively using that space, you're missing opportunities to communicate with your customer. And it hasn't always been really simple to get that content not only created to begin with, but then modified and managed over time. And especially if you've got a large fleet of ATMs, the ability to keep those ATMs consistent across the fleet takes a lot of effort and a lot of time. And so at CSG, not only can we help the development of that content so that you've got great, captivating content that's relevant and matches the rest of the bank or credit union marketing effort, but then we can also help manage that content on a regular basis so that it's fresh and that it matches and again is consistent with the rest of the marketing across the institution.
Been saying this all along with pretty much every topic we've discussed, but again, I would say having folks that have done it for a long time and understand what can be done, that can really help bridge the gap between hey, this is an ATM host setting versus, yeah, we can do something in the branding. We spend a lot of time with NCR and the folks at NCR to make sure that we can deliver an awesome experience and ultimately support the product. So yeah, I would just say, having our professional services team leading those projects can ultimately really help simplify those projects in what can be sometimes can feel like a daunting task.
Absolutely. I want to ask, do you all have any stories you can share of kind of how that marketing has been really successful for banks on that ATM?
Being that our team deploys it, I would say, whether it's an ITM customer and really trying to steer those customers down that path. We have a credit union in Southern Oregon that is an incredibly wildly successful ITM deployment. 60, 65 or so machines. But we did something pretty unique with their branding where, typically when you come to a machine, obviously it may be thumbing through different ATM campaign screens, let's call it. Whether it's talking through APR financing of a home loan or car loan or something to that effect. We took a different approach with this credit union, and this was actually their idea, where they really wanted to make sure that we were steering folks down wanting to have their membership tap the screen and talk to a teller. So their screens actually say nothing about anything that the bank or the credit union itself is doing from a financial lens. It is simply stating, tap the screen to talk to a teller. It's not even stating anything about dipping your card to run down the ATM rails to run an ATM transaction. It does that when it's outside of the teller window. But when tellers are there and present and that machine is in teller service, it actually says nothing other than, hey, we want you to tap a screen to talk to a teller. And they do that for multiple reasons. A, they feel like the experience that the teller can give is a next level sort of service. And secondly, instead of the machine itself doing a cross-selling moment, it's actually they're using their tellers, and they've taught their tellers to cross-sell other avenues of business as they're waiting on the transaction to be processed. So a little bit of a unique spin on what some others might take. So
I've got a really interesting customer on the East Coast, and every quarter I get their new updated files for their new ATM screens, and it's fun to watch them kind of progress those images every quarter, almost seasonally, right? So here's their winter package, and it really matches what the bank is doing for the winter, and then they get their spring package and their summer package. And what it does for them though is it creates a competitive advantage in their area because nobody else's ATMs are like that. And so the ATM experience for that bank is different than the ATM experience at the other banks. And they really use that as a competitive advantage to help them deliver on the customer experience that they're looking for.
Absolutely. So lastly, I want to ask, how else can Cook Solutions Group support ATMs or ITMs?
Yeah, good question. I think it's easy to think about the big projects, right? Like the ITM deployments or the check imaging deployments and those types of things that I think would be considered standard. But I think quite often the professional services team steps in and really helps with those more complicated scenarios where, hey, I've got a big fleet and I need them all upgraded from a software perspective and I need it done quickly. Or, I've got a major server upgrade requirement. And hey, instead of maybe upgrading those on-premise servers and spending the money on that, maybe pivoting towards a hosted environment might save me money, create efficiency for my institution, and bring extra expertise to the bank. So there's really unique scenarios like that we run into on a regular basis where I feel like having an effective professional services team really delivers an exceptional experience, which CSG cares a lot about.
Yeah, lastly, I would just say kind of an arm off of the professional services team would be our network operations center. So our NOC. I know Michael Strange has been on the show before, and that's the team that he leads. Our team tries to do everything we can to really extend that knowledge to them. So it's one thing to have a smooth process during a major project, right? But if then the support on the back end isn't up to that same level, then maybe we're missing. And I would like to pride ourselves, and especially kudos to Michael's team, like they really apply themselves in the same things that we're doing, and we try and have as much cross communication as we can to ultimately make sure that every customer that we're bringing on board, man, they know just as much about the customer from the moment that we hand them off, and that professional services project is done. They're being passed off to the NOC, so that way the support process on the back end is smooth and the customer feels supported.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to highlight before we sign off today?
Just that we appreciate all those customers that have engaged the professional services group in the past. We really get to build unique relationships with those folks as we work through big projects, and it's fun to work through those projects together and see the success on the back end. And so we appreciate their work and look forward to new opportunities as they come.
Well, thank you so much, Jeshua and Wade, for coming on and sharing about professional services today. Really loved speaking with you guys. Take care.